On the 22nd of September 2016, Feed Central embarked on a growers tour starting from Griffith, New South Wales and through to Victoria, visiting and linking up with a selected number of producers, all with extensive experience growing export quality hay for up to 15 years or more. Viewing their operations, equipment and talking what it takes to make quality export hay from one season to the next. We hope you enjoy this snippet of what was experienced.
So on our open hay, we've got really good fine weather and an average crop we can dry it in about 8 days. Main thing is the operator doesn't push it too hard, whereby the rollers start coming apart. And then as the open hay is going through, these will actually crush the nodes on the stem. And crush the stem as well. So that gives you a dry down out of that. But for good cereal hay production, you've got to crack those nodes. Especially in a drought year when you've got the high sugar content. To tell if it's ready, cereal hay is basically the node, put your thumb up against it and bend the plant up in half and it should actually snap clean through. If it actually bends over, it's not cured. In the drought years like we had last year, if there's still some in the boot, you've basically got to pull the boot open and have a look at it. The best way to see if there's any moisture in there is put it on a full bar or something like that, give it a smack with a hammer. If you've got any moisture comes out, you know it's not cured. When we're cutting about beer can height, generally, in a drought we go lower because you've got real dry ground. This year we probably even go a bit higher. Where crops down it's going to be an issue, because to get it to cut you've nearly got to go at ground level. And we're seriously thinking this year we're probably going to have to turn rows over, because there's going to be that much moisture under the row that won't dry.
So Phil, I've been talking like another inch or possibly 2 inch on top of your beer bottle. Is that what you're talking at, going that little bit higher?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Generally, if it's right, if you come back after you've got your windrow there, put your arm through, you should be able to go straight through underneath the row, and the hay will be sitting on the stubble above it. And that's part of having a narrower spacing on your side. Open hay quite often will bale straight out of mower rows, but this year will be different. If you haven't had any rain or anything on it and it's properly cured, you're right. Otherwise we'll rake 2 into 1 just in front of the bale, so the day before we're going to bale it, to just make sure it's up and it's fully aired out that day, but usually wait till it's cured. This year, because the ground's so wet, I think we're going to have to turn them over once we get the ground dry between the rows to actually get them cured. I don't know. But if you've had hay wet, we'll use the splitters to spread it out. And sometimes if it's only an inch of rain, we'll actually split the row out, like if it's already been raked and then got rain on it, split the row out and then bring the 2 rows back together in the one pass, and that's enough to just fluff it up and knock the water off it and put it back together.
And no problem with dirt pickup when you're doing that?
Not if you've got everything set right. No, if your splitters are touching the ground, they'll stall out.
Yeah, of course.
So, and your baskets have got gauge wheels on them and everything, they shouldn't touch the ground. But, we did have a snickle rake at one stage, just a single line rake, and we're using that in conjunction with the twin rotors when we had light silage crops, and that would trying to bring extra rows in, so you'd run up number 1 and number 4 and then your rotary rake would come in and put the other 2 together. But contamination with dirt, dust and old stubble and stuff's the problem. If we've got to turn rows over this year to try and get it off wet ground and stuff like that, this could be a bit of a handful. Just a rotary rake might be ideal for doing that sort of thing. A rotary rake will definitely handle wet material better and sort of tease it apart a bit, whereas these are just ideal for combining engine. From our point of view, we're at the stage where we either needed 2 or 3 balers from our loosen job to get hay off a big block quick enough and to get through our cereal workload, or to go to the steamer. We decided to go to the steamer because it kept our labour down, but also gave us the ability to bale when you can't be baling with the other balers if you haven't got enough dew. You can bale when it's 35, 40 degrees, but you're really pushing the limit. We try and bale on the window when you'd normally be baling, so in that 20 to 30 degree ambient temperature range. It just works beautifully. So it carries about 1,000 litres of diesel for the burner and the generator and the 2 black tanks. Carries 4,000 litres of water in the red tank to each side of the boiler. and then the desertified boiler's in the middle of the machine. Generally speaking, we can bale 250, 300 bales on a load. If it's real stinking hot, that might come down to 150. If it's good conditions, you might get up over 400 bales.
Look, we've sort of grown the export over the last few years. It's been really kind to us in the last 5 or 6 years. Ever since 2010, we want to forget about that one, and we might be saying the same about this one by the time it's over. So making the export grade this year is going to be a tough gig. There's a few things that I'll take you and show you a few crops and explain to you why I reckon it'll be a tough gig. Just because of the way they've grown this year, trying to get your feed tests up to standard is just going to be very difficult because the crop's grown so well. If you get a good crop and a really kind finish, very hard to try and get quality. So you can grow a lot of bulk, but you're not going to get the quality in that. Yeah, so just because the gross margins have been better on oat and hoe than what they have on cereals for us, we're probably in a 300 to 350 mil rainfall. So generally we can achieve. We've made top grade for the last 5 years straight. Just because of the seasons. I'd like to say it's something because of what we do, but really it's the seasons.
You've got to say that.
Yeah, that's it.
So Cole, on average, what's your tonnage into export compared to your other markets?
We'd probably be 50% export, 50% domestic.
Yeah, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, this year it would be more if it all made it.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm not expecting a lot to make it into the export this year. We have got a fair bit of shedding. I think we can hold about 12,000 bales at the moment. That's 8B4B3s. Well, the export hay job starts with the previous crop, because we're generally, a lot of our export oats is going on to barley stubbles. On our road, most of the irrigation doesn't make export grade, so we concentrate our export on our dryland country. The rotation, we generally run vetch hay, backed up by a crop of wheat and then a crop of barley, and then we drop our oat and hay on top of that. Sowing around that 80-90 kilos a hectare, depending on what variety it is. Main varieties we run is Russia and Mulgara. Yeah, we played around with Forester and Kangaroos, but they're the two that seem to suit our country the best. So the previous year's stubble on the barley, if it's a fairly low crop, we'll go down and we'll cut the barley about that 5-6 inches high with the header and put the rest of the straw out the back and spread it. If it's a fairly tall crop, we'll just take the grain and then we'll go back with a windrow and we'll windrow the straw and take the straw off at that 5-6 inches high. The reason we leave the stubble that high is we go in an inter-row sow our oats in between, and then that way it gives the next year's hay crop something to stand up on, so we can try and keep the hay off the ground. This year it's all gone pretty rotten what straw we have got left, and last year was a drought, so there wasn't a hell of a lot there anyway. So we're probably going to cut our crops this year on about a 15 degrees angle off up and down the rows. Main reason is to try and keep that hay sitting up off the ground. With rough weather that's going to come through this year, well, we would expect it to come through because it hasn't stopped all year yet, so just because we want to cut, I don't expect it to stop now. So yeah, we're going to go off on a 15 degree angle, try and set it up. We'll probably be cutting up at least 6 inches high this year. I'll explain to you why when we get out into the paddock. To try and keep the colour, because you start losing the colour on that bottom part of your plant. Also, it will detract from your feed test, that bottom part of your plant also. But the main thing is to try and keep it up off the ground. If we can keep all our hay up off the ground, if we do get rain and the hay's not sitting on the ground, you won't get the same mould as what you will normally, and allows it to aerate and allows your hay to cure a lot easier.
What's your fertiliser rates?
Fertiliser rates, on the third cereal on a row, we're depending on what the previous crop has been, 30 to 50 kgs of MAP, and we've been dropping 30 kilos of urea underneath. We've got a parallelogram seeder, so we're able to put our fertiliser a bit deeper than the seed. So just to try and give it that kick start, we're putting 30 kilos of urea underneath. On a year like this, we actually probably did the wrong thing. We went back and topped up with another 50 kilos. In a dry year, that 9 times out of 10 here, what we're aiming for is to get that early vigour, get that early growth, get it to tiller, and then try and stress it out as much as we can at the end of its growing life. If we can stress the plant, that's why we keep our seeding rates up and trying to get it to tiller as much as we can, because that if we start running short on moisture at the end of the season, that'll send your feed tests through the roof. And so we're trying to get that early growth, get the early vigour, and then stress it at the end of its life. That would be an ideal scenario. That's only a 16-foot front. We've got an 18-foot front on the mower at the moment. I'll finish the job up at Nangatang on its way home today, I hope. And we've got a set of rollers in the same as what we've got over here, which is a steel on rubber, and we squash the full length of the stem. It does an absolutely beautiful job of conditioning, it really does. So we try to use those rollers wherever possible. Worst thing about them is, as you can see here, the rubber comes off them. The rubber deteriorates. What do we get, Brad? 2 or 3 years out of them? 2 years?
Yeah, 2 or 3 like them.
And they're about $10,000 for a cartridge to put in.
Right.
So rubber on rubber is not as good as the steel on steel.
I'd go steel on steel before rubber on rubber. Rubber on rubber is just a little bit soft for cereal hay.
Yeah.
As far as your lucens, your vetches, clovers, all that, magnificent. They're really good. But they're not quite harsh enough for your oat and hay.
Yeah.
You really got to try and get it squashed.
So when do you rake? The day before you bale? Or?
Day before we bale, yeah. So what I'm going to go in and try and bale tonight, I will have had rake this morning and try and give it that 24 hours in. But I like to have it baled up before I get the next dew on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to try and save that colour. And yeah, you just got to be real careful. When you go checking your hay and you start looking at your nodes, you want every node to crack. You do not want to, you can't allow 1 in 10, you can't allow 3 in 10. Some people like to say, we have every node crack. Then you know you're safe. It saves you a whole heap of worry. Because this year, selling on the domestic market is going to be a tough year. You need to do the best job you can, have your hay shedded, because there is going to be a lot of hay coming back on the domestic market, I believe.
Play the waiting game.
It will be, yeah. Yep. So that's why you need sheds. You'll make money out of that hay. If you can sit it there for 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, you'll still make money out of it. These fellas over here love you if you've got a shed you can put it in. They're always going to be able to sell it for you.
365 days a year, every year.
Every year, that's it.
Doesn't matter if it's been sitting there 12 months or 18 months, it doesn't matter.
As long as it's in the shed.
As long as it's, yeah, as long
If
as
it's done to the best of its ability, it can be weather damaged, it can be rain, it can have the whole lot done to it, the worst you could think of. But if you do the best you can of that hay and put it in the shed undercover, you're not gonna lose money on it. Worst case scenario, you might only recover costs, but you won't lose money.
So when you jump off a baler, you've done a bale, probe it, and it's running around about 14, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, it's just straight off the baler.
Yep.
Is it going to drop a little bit after a few more
With
hours?
steam?
No, just a little
Without? No. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Depending on what sort of moisture you're talking about. If it's sap moisture, if you've got a bit of sap in there, no, it will never come down.
Dew.
If you've got dew moisture in there, it may come down a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
We've whacked hay in the shed at 18% moisture, and dragged it out at winter time, it's still 18% moisture.
That's going to give you a
if you're baling at 18% moisture of an afternoon at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at 35 degrees heat, that's sap moisture, isn't it? And so what's going to happen with that? That's going to boot up and boot up and boot up. So that's where guys that don't understand the difference.
the product in itself.
They're saying that they baled it at 14% moisture and wondering why it's been rejected, because that 14% moisture has been baled at the wrong time of the day, so it is all sap moisture. Then all of a sudden that boots up to 35 in a few days because of the sap in it. And then they've got the shits because it's been rejected. They reckon they've done the right job, but they just don't understand hay. With the steam, it packs your hay in a lot tighter, so we are going to be able to put more weight in our bales than what we can without steam. So that's going to make our trucks more efficient. We'll get more tonnage under the sheds. So there's a whole heap of those little gains that you're going to pick up. And the big one being is quality. Because when you're sitting there and you've got the bottom half of your windrows too wet to bale, the top half of your windrows drying out and chaffing up, we can wait around. In the past, we've had to go. Otherwise, you wouldn't achieve anything. So now, the story used to be, the first 2 hours you bale for the contractor, the second 2 hours you bale for the farmer, and the last 2 hours you bale for the contractor. So we'll probably only bale in 20% of our hay in ideal conditions. We hope to increase that up to 80% now. Because as that top's drying out and the bottom's just right and beautiful, we'll just turn steam onto the top manifolds, we'll leave the bottom ones turned off, and we'll just put steam on the top. So then we're going to bring that back to being perfect hay as well. And then once the bottom dries out, we can then start putting some steam on that. And bale for a little bit longer again. Probably a little bit coarse in the stem this year to what I normally like to see.
So which crop is this, Col?
Mulgara. Yeah. That's as thick as you want to get it as a rule, but if you have a look, quite a lot of them are thicker than that. So just because of the season, it's been such a good season for us, it just wasn't sowing heavy. This was sown at 85 kilos. Really with the Mulgara seed's a lot bigger and a lot heavier than a lot of your other oat seeds. So we actually should be selling it heavier than what we, to try and get the same plant population, because you've actually got less seeds. So our plant population is probably a little bit light on this year. So I'd say we'll be up 95 to 100 kilos in the future. We'll probably stick at 80 with our brusher seed, but our Mulgara, we're going to increase our seeding rate with that from now on. For this here, lucky still standing, there's a lot of crops around here that aren't, so I'm pretty fortunate to see this. I would imagine we're about 14 days off cutting, thereabouts. But yeah, if you've got them really stuck down, like this one here, it's probably too low. See, that hasn't even started to come out. That there is what's going to cause your haystack fires, if you've got too many of them. Where that one there, you've only just got a bit of flag leaf wrapped around your seed, you'll get away with it. But as soon as it's under that and still down in the sheath, you're buggered, you can't cut it. You've got to wait. I'll probably be cutting up. Oh, it hasn't started to dry out yet. But I'd say I'll be cutting up at least that high. I'll be above that first node. So yeah, that takes a fair bit of yield away. If you drop all that out. You can easily drop half a tonne. But with this soil, there's not much dust in it now, but this can get fairly light and low. So I do like to leave something behind to protect the soil. But the main thing is just keeping it up off the ground. You just don't want your export hay touching the ground if you can avoid it. We come this way just to have a look at the hay rakes. See how we put a roller on behind one of the hay rakes just to smooth it all down to stop the wind. For hay that we're going to leave sitting up in raked windrows for a week or for a fortnight, we just put that roller on it and it just doesn't seem to move. So putting it on behind that rotary rake, the windrows seem to hold pretty well. And see how it started to lose that colour there in the bottom? Yeah. That's why we'll be cutting up about that high. Yeah. So if you can get it at the point of flowering, generally it's, or earlier you cut your hay, the better feed test you get.
Start with our average rainfall here, we work on about 40 mils, so 400 mils. Last year we had a total of 268, and in growing season we had 150. Our cropping program is made up pretty much of the 15,000 acres, and then we split that up to wheat, and some of that wheat's made up of grazer wheats and hay wheats, and also grain wheat. This year so far, our season, we've had 426 mils of rain, and in crop we've had 370. So if you were to pull out one of those plants of oats there, you'll find there's very little root structure. It's all grown at the top, and we've had a lot of trouble in the fortnight ago. A lot of these crops went arse over a bit because the no secondary roots. I think some of you blokes might have the same problem up there. The hay's just grown, the crops are just growing on the top, and over they go when they get a bit heavy. We run 2 seeders. You won't see the seeders. We had a John Deere disc seeder on 7-inch spacings, and we've just traded that up to a Boss, and we could got it in a 9, but it was going to be too hard to get it in a 9, so we went to a 10-inch, and a simplistic bar and seeder is the other one, so we'll run 2 40-footers next year. All the paddocks behind the simplistic seeder are rolled.
Rolled separately?
So, no, we hook the...
Same?
Yes, she's all done in one pass, so she's tractor, seeder, harrow. We only use roll harrows, and the bin, and then we tow the roller behind that. So we like to have our paddocks as flat, even our grain paddocks. I know it doesn't suit everyone's operation, but it does work for us here. We leave them as flat as we can, just because we never know which paddock we're going to cut and which paddock we're going to strip. But you've got to make sure that you do, and I think Charlie might have spoke at, for those that were at when he went up there, spoke that make sure that you prepare your ground. If you can't roll straight away, make sure you do roll before the crop gets up too high, because you have got to have it flat, or flatter than what you can't just leave it ridged up like you do for your grain crops. Because all that dirt that comes in when you hit a rake, you know, this year will be fine because you can keep your cutting height up, but some years, so this year, plenty of crop, you know, yeah, you get them up a bit so you can get a bit of ventilation under them. In some places that's not going to be that easy to do because the crop's gone over, so you're going to have to go down and get it, so you're going to hit it a bit harder. So this is sunland in the middle, and Naparoo wheat on both sides. So we have got, like I said, last year we sold a lot of our hay, wheat hay to the exporters, and done very well out of it.
So the benefit of the Sun Lamb is that I think it's classified as ASW in Victoria, where Naparoos only feed